Alan Wright stared out the large window of his quarters on Harmony's Nexus. The massive space station hung in orbit around a neutral star, home to the Galactic Council for over 500 years. From here, he could see the slow dance of ships coming and going. Sleek vessels from the Vosic Empire with their characteristic blue engines, bulky Tralaxian cargo haulers, and the crystalline ships of the Delphian Convergence that seemed to shimmer between states of matter. None of them were human ships, not anymore. "Ambassador, the final vote tally has been confirmed," said Olivia Carter from the doorway. Her voice was calm, but Alan could see the tension in her shoulders. She had been his right hand for 7 years now, and they had developed the ability to read each other's moods with just a glance. Alan nodded without turning from the window. And the result? 26 in favor, 1 abstention. Resolution 872B has passed. The words hung in the air between them. Alan closed his eyes briefly. He had expected this outcome, but hearing it confirmed still felt like a physical blow. Resolution 872B. The formal name masked its true purpose: to limit human expansion to just 5 star systems over the next century. Meanwhile, the Vosic would receive 52 systems. Even the Pelleran, a species that had only achieved faster than light travel 30 years ago, would be granted 11. The abstention? Alan asked, finally turning to face Olivia. The Cygni Collective. Their representative approached me afterward. They wanted me to tell you that they respect humanity's contributions to galactic medicine. Alan smiled without humor. Just not enough to vote against the resolution. No, Olivia agreed. Not enough for that. Alan walked to his desk and pressed his palm against the scanner. A holographic display sprang to life, showing a document he had drafted 3 days ago when the outcome had become clear. The text glowed blue in the dim light of his quarters. The words, "Formal withdrawal," prominently displayed at the top. "Have you received confirmation from Earth?" Olivia asked, moving closer to look at the document. Yes, the unified Earth government voted unanimously. If the resolution passed, we were to enact Protocol Exodus. Alan ran a hand through his graying hair. They've never understood us, Olivia. Not really. 200 years of membership in this council, and they still see us as unpredictable animals barely out of our caves. Olivia nodded. The Zictarath representative actually used the phrase statistical uncertainty when describing humans during the closed session yesterday. Of course he did, Alan muttered. Did he do the mandible click thing? Twice. Despite the gravity of the moment, they both smiled. The small shared joke was a momentary relief from the weight of what they were about to do. Alan tapped a command. On the holographic interface. I've sent the withdrawal notice to our staff. We have 12 hours before I formally announce it to the council. How are our evacuation preparations? Olivia pulled out her own datapad. Greg and his team have been quietly moving our essential systems for the past week. The quantum computers containing our research data were loaded onto diplomatic vessels 3 days ago. Dr. Hudson has secured all biological samples. The only things left are personal belongings and the maintenance guides. Alan raised an eyebrow. You think they'll actually read them? Probably not. The Vosic would rather the station collapsed than admit they need human engineering to keep it running. Olivia's voice was matter-of-fact. But we'll leave the instructions anyway. We're better than they think we are. Alan nodded and walked to a small cabinet on the far wall. He pressed his thumb against another scanner, and the cabinet slid open to reveal a bottle of amber liquid and 2 glasses. Earth whiskey, he said, holding up the bottle. I've been saving this for a special occasion. Is this a special occasion, sir? Olivia asked, taking the offered glass. Alan poured 2 fingers of whiskey into each glass. The end of a 200-year experiment in interspecies cooperation? I'd say that qualifies. They touched glasses with a soft clink. To humanity, Alan said. To humanity, Olivia echoed. They drank in silence for a moment, the smoky flavor of the whiskey warming them both. What do you think they'll do when they realize we're actually leaving? Olivia asked. Alan set his glass down. First, they won't believe it. The council thinks everything is a negotiation tactic. Then they'll be angry. Then worried. And finally, they'll want us back. Will we come back? Alan looked out the window again, at the vast expanse of stars beyond. Not on their terms. Never. Again on their terms. A soft chime from Olivia's datapad interrupted them. She glanced at it and straightened her shoulders. Sir, the first transport is ready for loading. We should begin moving our staff to the departure bays. Alan finished his whiskey and set the glass down with a sense of finality. Make sure everyone understands the protocol. Minimal communication with other species. No explanations, no arguments, no goodbyes. We simply leave. Understood. As Olivia turned to go, Alan called after her. And Olivia? Make sure all our backdoor access to critical station systems is removed according to plan. I want them to discover exactly how much they've relied on us, one system at a time. Olivia nodded, a small smile playing at the corner of her mouth. Already done, sir. Environmental controls will be the first to show problems, approximately 3 months after our departure. Life support redundancies will begin failing in 6. Alan picked up a small picture frame from his desk, the last personal item to be packed. It showed Earth from orbit, the blue and green planet that had given birth to humanity. 200 years, he murmured to himself. 200 years of being the Council's problem solvers, mediators, and engineers. Let's see how they manage without us. That night, as most of the station's residents slept, 35 humans quietly moved their remaining belongings to the diplomatic ships docked at the far end of Harmony's nexus. Security feeds in that section mysteriously went offline for 3 hours, long enough for the preparations to be completed without questions. In his now empty quarters, Alan Wright prepared his speech for the morning council session. The words came easily, fueled by years of suppressed frustration at watching humanity's contributions be undervalued and dismissed. On his desk sat a small package, the only thing humanity would leave behind. Inside were printed instructions for maintaining 26 critical systems that human engineers had designed or improved over the decades. They'll need these sooner than they think, Alan said to the empty room. Outside his window, the endless stars beckoned, a promise of freedom and possibility. Humanity had outgrown the Council's limitations. It was time to forge their own path among those stars. Tomorrow, the galaxy would change forever. The council chamber was a marvel of alien architecture. Its curved walls rose high overhead, meeting in a dome that displayed the real-time positions of every member world's star system. The floor was arranged in concentric circles, with the oldest and most powerful species seated in the inner rings. Humans, as relatively new members, had always been assigned to the outermost circle. Today, Alan Wright would stand at the center for the first and last time. The chamber buzzed with the hey sounds of 27 different species communicating. Some spoke with voices, others with color patterns flashing across their skin, and still others through scent signals that special translators converted to standard speech. Alan straightened his formal blue uniform as he waited for the session to begin. They're all here, Olivia whispered beside him. Even the Pelleran who rarely attend full sessions. Alan nodded. Word must have gotten out that we requested a special address. Do they suspect? No, Alan said quietly. They think we're going to protest the resolution, maybe beg for reconsideration. High Chancellor Zorlak, a tall being with translucent skin that pulsed with blue light, moved to the center platform. The chamber quieted immediately. This emergency session has been called at the request of Earth's representative, Zorlak announced, his translator converting his light pulses into words. Ambassador Wright, you have the floor. Alan walked forward, his footsteps echoing in the sudden silence. He felt the eyes and various sensory organs of the galaxy's most powerful beings focused on him. For 200 years, humans had stood before this council as the newcomers, the young species always having to prove themselves worthy. That ended today. Esteemed representatives, Alan began, his voice calm and measured. For 2 centuries, humanity has been part of this council. We've contributed to galactic medicine, engineering, and peacekeeping efforts. Our scientists have developed cures for 17 cross-species diseases. Our engineers have improved this very station's efficiency by 63%. Our diplomatic teams have mediated conflicts between the Vosic and Trilaxians, the Cygni and Pelleran, and many others. Alan paused, looking around the chamber. Some representatives were already showing signs of impatience. The Zakatorath delegate clicked his mandibles, a gesture of dismissal. Yesterday, this council passed Resolution 872B, limiting human expansion to 5-star systems over the next century. The justification given was that humans are unpredictably volatile and present a statistical uncertainty to galactic stability. Senior Council member Zika Torath rose slightly from his seat. His insectoid form towered over most other delegates. Ambassador Wright, the Council has already ruled on human expansion rights. This session was merely called to formalize. I'm not here to debate Resolution 872B. Alan interrupted. Something unprecedented in Council proceedings. A shocked murmur ran through the chamber. I'm here to inform you that as of this moment, humanity is withdrawing from the Galactic Council, effective immediately. For 3 seconds, the chamber was completely silent. Then chaos erupted. Delegates rose from their seats, translators struggled with the multiple simultaneous outbursts, and security drones hovered uncertainly. "Order!" shouted Chancellor Zorlak, his skin flashing bright red with alarm. "Order in the council!" Gradually the uproar subsided. Zorlak turned to Alan, his translator barely keeping up with his rapid light pulses. "Ambassador Wright, what you suggest is without precedent. No species has ever withdrawn from the council once admitted." "Then we will be the first," Alan said, simply. The Delphian representative, Elder Matriarch Vishan, leaned forward. Her crystalline form caught the light as she moved. "Ambassador, surely this is an extreme reaction to a single policy disagreement. The resolution can be revisited in the next cycle." "This is not about a single resolution," Alan replied. "This is about a pattern of treatment that has persisted for 2 centuries. Humanity will no longer accept being valued only for what we can provide while being denied equal standing." From the far side of the chamber, the Cygni representative raised a tentacle. "What does this withdrawal entail precisely?" Alan turned to address the floating, jellyfish-like being. "All human personnel are departing Harmony's nexus. All human ships are being recalled from Council space. All human trade, agreements with Council worlds will be suspended, pending new bilateral negotiations outside the Council framework." Another wave of alarmed chatter swept the chamber. "This is absurd," declared the Vosic Emperor's proxy, his scaled face flushing deep purple. "You cannot simply leave. There are protocols, procedures, all of which we have followed." Alan cut in. "The formal withdrawal notice has been filed. As we speak, the last human diplomatic vessels are preparing to depart." At the back of the chamber, Steve Foster and his logistics team monitored the evacuation progress on their data pads. The last transport ships were being loaded. Dr. Karen Hudson had just secured the final containers of biological samples, research that had never been shared with the wider council. 93% complete, Steve whispered to Karen. "They still don't believe we're actually leaving." Karen nodded. "They think it's a negotiation tactic." On the council floor, the debate was growing heated. Chancellor Zorlak's skin was flashing rapidly between colors as he tried to maintain order. "Ambassador Wright," he finally said, "I must insist that you reconsider this drastic action. Perhaps we can form a committee to address human concerns." "We have sat on committees for 200 years, Alan said firmly. "We have presented evidence, proposed compromises, and demonstrated good faith. The time for committees is over." The Zakatorath representative's mandibles clicked rapidly, and what humans had learned was a sign of extreme agitation. "If you leave, who will maintain the medical research stations in the Proxima sector? Who will staff the peacekeeping vessels along the Aldebaran trade routes?" "Those are excellent questions," Alan replied. "Perhaps the Council should have considered them before passing Resolution 872B. A soft chime sounded from Olivia's datapad. She glanced at it and gave Alan a slight nod. The evacuation was complete. All human personnel except for those in the chamber were now aboard the transport vessels. Alan took a deep breath. Representatives of the Galactic Council, humanity thanks you for 2 centuries of cooperation. We hope that in our absence, you will reflect on the true meaning of partnership and equality. Should you wish to establish new relations with Earth and her colonies in the future, we will be open to discussions, as equals, not as junior members to be controlled and limited. He stepped back from the central platform. The chamber had fallen silent again, but this time with the stunned quiet of disbelief. This session is concluded, Alan said, using the formal closing words usually reserved for the Chancellor. As he and Olivia turned to leave, followed by the human delegation, Elder Matriarch Vishan called out, "Ambassador, you cannot seriously believe that a single species can survive alone in this galaxy. There are dangers beyond our borders that require unified response." Alan paused at the chamber doorway. "We don't intend to be alone, Elder Matriarch. We intend to build better alliances, ones based on mutual respect." With that, the human delegation exited the council chamber for the final time. In the diplomatic docking bay, 3 ships waited, the last human vessels on Harmony's Nexus. As Alan and his team boarded, he took one final look at the station that had been humanity's gateway to the stars. "Send the signal," he told Olivia as the airlock closed behind them. Across the station in the now empty human embassy, a small package was left on a table, the sealed case containing printed instructions for maintaining the 26 critical systems that human engineers had been quietly managing for decades. As the human ships jumped to hyperspace leaving Harmony's Nexus behind, Alan Wright looked out at the stars and felt something he hadn't experienced in years. Hope. "They'll call us back," Olivia said, standing beside him on the bridge. "Yes," Alan agreed. "But next time we'll set the terms." 3 months passed since humanity's departure from the Galactic Council. The human colonies, now free from Council restrictions, expanded their operations across their claimed space. On the newly established human diplomatic outpost in the independent Rigel system, Meg Porter stared at her monitoring screens with a frown. "There it is," she said to Ryan Miller, who stood behind her chair. "The first failure in the environmental systems on Harmony's Nexus, right on schedule." Ryan leaned closer to look at the data streaming across the screen. As Director of Human Intelligence, he oversaw all monitoring of former Council space. "What happened?" "Atmospheric processors in the Trilaxian sector just went offline," Meg explained. She pointed to a flashing red indicator on her display. "The backup system's engaged, but they'll start failing too if the main system isn't properly recalibrated." "Did they find the maintenance instructions we left?" Meg shook her head. "No sign they even looked for them. The Vosic engineers are trying to bypass our security protocols, but they don't understand the fail-safes we built in." Ryan scratched his beard thoughtfully. "The Trilaxians need precise atmospheric composition. If those systems fail completely, at least 8 Trilaxian delegates will become seriously ill within hours," Meg finished for him. "And their nearest medical facility is 2 jump points away." A new alert flashed on the screen. Meg quickly brought up the incoming data. "The station's automated distress system just activated. It's sending a signal on all channels, including our old emergency frequency." "Which we're still monitoring, as they probably hoped," Ryan noted. "What do you want to do?" Meg considered for a moment. "I'll send them the bypass codes for the environmental systems. Anonymous source, no direct contact." Ryan nodded his approval. "Just enough to fix this emergency, but not enough to give them full access to the systems." "Exactly," Meg said as she typed in the commands. "They need to understand what they've lost, but we don't want anyone to die because of political games." The alert on her screen changed from red to yellow as the code was transmitted. "There. That should keep the Trilaxian delegates breathing for another few weeks. After that, they'll need to figure out the full maintenance procedures." Ryan moved to his own workstation and pulled up a galactic map. Small red dots flashed across Council space. "It's not just the station. Look at these reports from the Aldebaran trade routes." Meg joined him, her eyes widening at the data. Piracy is up. Over 400%? That can't be right. It is. Without human peacekeeping vessels, the pirates are having a field day. 3 major cargo shipments hit just last week. Ryan zoomed in on a particular sector. The Vosik are trying to patrol the routes themselves, but they don't have the ships to spare. Not with tensions rising on their borders with the Zika Torath. Meg shook her head. Those tensions were rising before we left. Ambassador Wright mediated 3 separate incidents last year alone. And now there's no one to mediate, Ryan said grimly. A young communications officer approached their workstations. Director Miller, Chief Engineer Porter, Ambassador Wright, has requested your presence in the main conference room. We've received an unofficial communication from the Cygni Collective. Ryan and Meg exchanged surprised glances. The Cygni had been the only species to abstain from voting on Resolution 872B. In the conference room, Alan Wright was reviewing data on a large wall screen when they entered. Olivia Carter stood beside him, pointing out key information. Meg, Ryan, good timing, Alan said as they joined him at the table. The Cygni have reached out through an independent trader. They're offering to establish direct relations with humanity, outside of the Council framework. That's a major breach of Council protocol, Ryan noted. Member species are required to maintain unified diplomatic fronts. Exactly, Alan said, with a slight smile. It's the first crack in their unity. The Cygni were always the most pragmatic of the Council species. They see which way the wind is blowing. Olivia brought up a new set of images on the screen. We've also received these from our observers. The Proxima Medical Research Station is experiencing significant delays in vaccine production. 5 critical cross-species vaccines are now on indefinite hold. Our scientists led most of those research teams, Meg observed, and apparently took their expertise with them. Olivia agreed. Alan walked to the window that overlooked the busy spaceport of the human diplomatic outpost. Ships from several independent trading worlds were docked there, engaging in commerce free from Council regulations. How many approaches have we received from non-Council worlds? He asked. 17 so far, Olivia replied. All seeking trade agreements, technological partnerships, or defense pacts. And from Council worlds? Just this unofficial one from the Cygni. The others are still maintaining the official position that humanity will return to the Council once we come to our senses, Olivia said, with a hint of irony in her voice. Alan nodded slowly. They still don't understand. They think this is a temper tantrum that will burn itself out. What about the package we left? Ryan asked. The maintenance instructions? Still sitting untouched in the former human embassy, Olivia reported. Our source on the station confirms no one has entered that section since we left. Pride, Alan said simply. They would rather struggle than admit they need human help. Meg returned to her data pad, reviewing the station's systems. Based on my projections, if they don't start proper maintenance procedures within the next month, they'll begin seeing cascading failures. Life support, navigation, defense systems, all of it will start breaking down. And it won't just be the station, Ryan added. The entire Council communication network relies on algorithms our people designed. Without regular updates, security vulnerabilities will compound. Information distortion will increase. Decision-making will slow. Alan turned back from the window. We wait, he said firmly. We continue monitoring. We help where we can without being seen to help. But we do not reach out officially. They need to understand what humanity brought to the table. A new alert sounded from Olivia's data pad. She checked it quickly, her expression serious. We just received a report from our observer near the Proxima sector. The Zikatarath have moved military vessels into disputed territory with the Vosik. It looks like they're testing boundaries. Without human mediators, Alan murmured. Should we warn the Council? Meg asked. Alan considered for a moment. No, they made their choice. Now they must live with it. For a while longer at least. As the meeting concluded and the others left, Olivia remained behind with Alan. Do you think we made the right choice? She asked quietly. People could die because of these failures. Alan's expression was solemn. We'll intervene if lives are directly threatened, as we did with the Trilaxian environmental systems. But the Council needs to learn this lesson. For 2 centuries, they've taken what humanity offered while treating us as lesser partners. That had to end. And when they finally ask us to return, we'll be ready, Alan said, looking out at the stars, with terms that ensure humanity is never taken for granted again. Outside the window, a ship bearing the markings of the Independent Rigel system docked at the station. More worlds were seeking connection with humans every day. A new network was forming, not based on the old hierarchies of the Council, but on mutual respect and shared interest. The Council was beginning to crumble, just as Alan had predicted, and from its ruins something better would emerge. The 5 Council representatives stood in the simple reception area of the human diplomatic headquarters on New Terra. Their delegation had arrived with considerably less ceremony than they were accustomed to. Chancellor Zorlak's translucent skin pulsed with muted colors, indicating his discomfort at being kept waiting. "How much longer will this take?" asked the Zaktorath representative, his mandibles clicking with impatience. "Ambassador Wright will see us when he chooses," said Elder Matriarch Vishan of the Delphian Convergence. "We are guests here, not authorities." It had been 1 year since humanity's withdrawal from the Galactic Council. 1 year of spreading chaos across Council space. 1 year of failing systems, disrupted trade, and rising conflicts. The mighty Council, which had governed interstellar relations for over 500 years, was crumbling. Finally, a young human aide appeared. "Prime Representative Wright will see you now." The Council members exchanged glances at the new title. Not ambassador, but prime representative. A clear signal that humanity no longer recognized Council authority. They were led into a spacious conference room. Instead of the ornate chamber they were accustomed to, with its hierarchical seating arrangements, this room featured a simple round table. And instead of just Alan Wright, they found the full Human Governance Council, 12 individuals representing Earth and its colonies. "Welcome to human space," said Alan, now serving as humanity's prime representative. "You've traveled far." Chancellor Zorlak stepped forward, his skin pulsing with formal diplomatic patterns. "On behalf of the Galactic Council, I thank you for receiving us." Alan gestured to the seats. "Please join us." As the aliens took their places, Alan introduced the human representatives. "This is our Governance Council. Unlike your centralized authority, we believe in distributed leadership. Each member here represents a different aspect of human society and territory." The Council representatives noted how much Alan had changed in the past year. He carried himself with new confidence. Gone was the diplomatic deference they had grown accustomed to from humans. "Let us speak plainly," Zorlak began. "The withdrawal of humanity from the Council has created significant challenges. We propose that humanity return to its former position, with certain accommodations." Alan leaned forward slightly. "What sort of accommodations?" "An increase in your allocated expansion territory," Zorlak said. "Perhaps double the original allocation. And a position on the development committee." The humans around the table exchanged glances. Some smiled slightly. "Chancellor," Alan said calmly, "I don't think you understand the situation. We are not here to negotiate our return to our former position. That is not an option." The Zaktorath representative's mandibles clicked, rapidly. "Then why agree to this meeting at all?" Olivia Carter, now serving as security director, spoke up. "Because despite everything, we believe in cooperation, just not under the old terms." For the next 7 days, the negotiations continued. The Council representatives began with demands, shifted to requests, and finally arrived at genuine dialogue. The humans, for their part, listened more than they spoke, another calculated choice that was not lost on the visitors. On the final day, Alan presented humanity's terms, a restructured galactic alliance where all species held equal voting rights, transparent sharing of technological developments, mutual defense protocols, and open expansion rights based on actual capabilities rather than political favoritism. This isn't a negotiation for humanity to rejoin your existing power structure, Alan explained. It's an opportunity to build something better together. Chancellor Zorlak's skin pulsed with rapid colors as he conferred with his delegation. What you propose would dismantle 500 years of established order. An order that was already failing, countered Ryan Miller, now serving as intelligence director. In the past year, 3 separate interspecies conflicts have erupted into open warfare. Trade volume has decreased by 37%. The bureaucracy that once efficiently managed resources now struggles to function. Because humanity left. The Zekatorath representative clicked angrily. No, Alan said firmly. Because the system was built on inequality. Because species that could contribute were held back while others maintained power through tradition rather than merit. Humanity simply exposed the weakness that was already there. Elder Matriarch Vishan, who had remained quiet through much of the negotiations, finally spoke. I have lived for 317 of your Earth years, she said, her crystalline form catching the light. I have seen empires rise and fall. What you propose is revolutionary, but perhaps revolution is what we need. Back on Harmony's Nexus, now functioning at only 68% capacity despite the Council's best efforts, Olivia supervised the human technical team that had been permitted to begin emergency repairs. As she watched human engineers work, alongside alien counterparts, she received the transmission from New Terra. The framework agreement had been signed. Lisa Chen, who had remained on the station as an independent contractor, joined Olivia on the observation deck. Quite a change from a year ago, Lisa remarked, watching a Vosic engineer ask questions of a human technician. They wouldn't even acknowledge we understood their systems back then. Amazing what a year of breakdowns can do for interspecies. Cooperation, Olivia replied with a small smile. Throughout human space, citizens received news of the new Galactic Alliance with cautious optimism. In alien territories, reactions ranged from relief to resentment. But as systems began functioning properly again, as conflicts cooled under joint human-alien peacekeeping efforts, as trade routes reopened and prosperity returned, the new reality settled in. Humanity had walked out, and in doing so had broken a flawed system to build a better one in its place. In his new office on New Terra, Alan looked out at the sprawling human settlement. Ships from 38 different species, the original 27 council members plus 11 new races that had been previously excluded, now docked freely at the spaceport. Olivia entered with the final treaty document. It's done, she said. All 38 species have ratified the Alliance Charter. Alan took the document, running his fingers over the embossed seal. We could have failed, he admitted. They could have found ways to continue without us. No, Olivia replied with certainty. They needed us as much as we needed them. They just had to recognize it. In the new Alliance chamber, representatives gathered for the first official session. Unlike the old council chamber with its concentric rings placing the oldest species closest to the center, this new chamber was arranged in a perfect circle, with each representative seated at equal distance from the center. As Alan took his place, in the circle he felt a profound sense of accomplishment. It wasn't perfect. There would be conflicts and challenges ahead. The oldest species, accustomed to their privileged positions, would test boundaries. The newest members would need guidance to find their voices. But as he looked around at the diverse beings who now sat as equals, he knew that the galaxy had changed irrevocably, because humans had been willing to walk away. The first session of the Galactic Alliance is now in session, announced the elected session chair, a Signy, representative who had been chosen based on merit rather than species. Alan caught Olivia's eye across the chamber and smiled slightly. Their gamble had paid off. Humanity had proven its worth not by begging for recognition, but by showing the galaxy what happened when humans walked out. The old council had crumbled, and from its ruins, a stronger, fairer alliance had emerged. Discussions began about the first joint research project, a cross-species medical initiative that would benefit all worlds. Alan felt a new sense of possibility. This was what humanity had sought all along, not domination, not special treatment, but the chance to build something truly great alongside equals. The galaxy would never be the same again.